Welcome back to the Abundant Practice Podcast. I'm your host, Allison Pereira, founder of Abundance Practice Building, and I'm here with Nikki Drew. We're going to be talking about outsourcing. Nikki owns Couchside Coordinators, which we're going to talk about. But can we first kind of like talk about why you care about outsourcing? And maybe we'll define outsourcing as we talk about that.
Yes. I would say outsourcing is very near and dear to my heart because as a private practice owner also, I did not outsource right away. And I think a lot of therapists don't outsource right away because you're trying to keep that overhead down. But
Mhm.
then you start wearing all of these different hats. And before you know it, you're used to wearing different hats and you're in the chaos. And I
Mhm.
think then not outsourcing starts to hinder progress for your business, for yourself. It contributes to burnout. And that's what actually led me into Couchside Coordinators was my own burnout from not outsourcing and not delegating.
Mhm. It's interesting because I do feel like there is this like tipping point where if you're not outsourcing, um, like life feels significantly harder than it needs to. Because it's not just your practice, it like starts to feel like your whole life is hard. Um, and what's interesting is for most people that I see like and work with in my own experience is like when you do outsource, it's scary because you're always at a point, you're never at a point where like I have all of this extra money. What should I do with it? Right? Like there's this pause of, I mean, I could, it'd be tight, but I could pay for some help. But once you pay for the help, almost everybody I've seen ever makes more money than they made before.
Exactly, because then it opens up that time of, okay, well, now I just outsource, this task or these couple of tasks. That frees up 5 extra hours that I could be doing something. I could be seeing another client. And now it's not, oh, this money is going out. It's money's going out, but money's coming in now, and I can grow a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. Can we talk about like some of the things that therapists are doing that they don't need to be doing? Like what can be outsourced?
Yes. And I will say too, speaking as, a psychologist, part of the difficulty with outsourcing that I've seen, aside from that money, it's also like not wanting to give up control,
Hmm.
like fearing that trust piece in another person.
Hmm.
And when we're in school, it's like, okay, be in session, be there, hold space, do your notes after. It's like, okay, but then running a private practice, it's well, there's all this other admin stuff of I need to respond to emails. If I accept insurance, I need to follow up on that. If I don't accept insurance, I have to follow up on billing. I need to do scheduling. Now social media is the way to go with marketing. So now I have to be a social media manager. Like there's all of this other stuff outside of the therapy room that therapists are now having to do. And most of us weren't taught how to do that.
No. And some of us have a natural proclivity towards those kinds of things, but so many of us don't.
No.
So many of us, it's just, it's like the laundry on the chair in your bedroom kind of a situation, but in your practice.
Yes. And the biggest thing I've seen is the social media piece, or, okay, I now need a website and I don't know the first thing about doing a website, or, I want to do a newsletter. I want to grow my email list, all of these great things to do for a practice and for a business, but you only have so many hours in the day. And
Mhm.
making sure you're not going into that burnout mode, making sure you're there, not just for your clients, but for yourself and saying, I just want to be a therapist and that's okay, let me give this to somebody else.
Mhm. Yeah. And it's like, it's kind of a way that not entirely, but almost entirely, you can have that, the good parts of working for someone else where you go, you do your therapy, you do your note, you're mostly done. Like it's the closest way to live that
Mhm.
um, is by hiring somebody to
Exactly.
help you. Yeah.
Exactly. Hiring somebody to help you, because I talked to so many private practice owners who are like, you couldn't pay me to be an employee again. Like, I want to be able to set my own schedule, to see who I want to see, all of these things, which is great. And then add to your team so you can continue focusing on that.
Yeah. It's interesting how, yeah, it's like the idea of working for someone makes me like literally a little nauseous. Like I can't imagine. And also because as somebody who outsources a lot, the idea of doing everything that my team does would be just panic attack city. Like there's just no possible way. Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, we talked about some things that can be outsourced. Um, what do you think? What do you think outsourcing like, okay, how am I going to say this? We're not all good at everything, right? Like you can be an amazing therapist and do a really good job at so much, but suck at tech, right? Like you can send emails and you can get on social, but like you don't know how to upload a blog post or do SEO or like these kinds of things. What do you see therapists that you work with struggle the most out of all the things that could be outsourced? Like, what is it that you genuinely do better than they do because they just don't have the skill set?
I'm going to say SEO and social media
Hmm.
because SEO is it's this annoying, lovely thing that just constantly changes and
Hmm.
keeping up with it and understanding the little nuance pieces throughout it. People are like, I'm doing all of the things, but like I'm not ranking. I'm like, yeah, because you're probably not doing the thing that needs to work for your practice. Let
Right.
the professional handle it. Or same thing with social media of I think the pandemic changed this piece because so many of us saw each other's homes during that time of it's not enough now to just post something for the sake of posting it. It's being authentic. It's speaking to your audience. It's knowing what your audience wants to see, wants to hear, wants to view. And I don't want to say manipulating it because it's not manipulation, but like socially engineering that to work to your advantage. And then it helps with the SEO also.
Hmm.
It's not as simple of just posting something like you would on like your personal Instagram page. It's way more in depth than that. And
Hmm.
most therapists don't have the time for it. And that's fine. Give it to somebody who does it all day, every day, and
Hmm.
they'll do it for you.
Yeah. So I think about like social media growth, like hinges so much on like the person talking or the person's face or things like that. How do you work around that?
So our social media managers at Couchside really start the very first month that we are doing any social media management with, it doesn't have to be just therapists, but I'll speak to therapists. It's really understanding their vision for the space and what their brand is, what their tone is. You know, if their niche is working with a certain population, but they don't have any of that on social media, we need to get that out there so that the algorithm starts noticing, hey, you work with this age group, this population with this issue. Let's start getting content out there, and then you'll start bringing in an audience that wants to view that material.
Hmm. Yeah. So are you doing primarily carousels or are you like helping them know what to record? Like, how do you do it?
So we do a little bit of both. We have a couple of different packages, and I always tell people who onboard with us, do trial and error the first month because at the end of every month, we're looking at the KPIs, we're checking the account and saying like, what post did do well? Was it reels? Was it carousel posts? And it's going to be different for everybody. We have a client right now whose Instagram took off, and all she'll do is carousel posts. She doesn't want to touch reels, which is totally fine.
Hmm.
Her stuff took off, but then we have somebody else who carousel posts don't do great for them. So they went the real route, and that is what works for them. So it's figuring out
Hmm.
what works for their audience, but also what works for that therapist. Because yes, you want to market yourself, but do it authentically. So if you don't want to get in front of the camera and do reels or videos, don't do them because that's not authentic. So you're not going to be getting the followers that you want.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's interesting how our personalities, I was just talking about this yesterday in a webinar, like our personalities, bring in the right people, push away the other people. And if you're not showing your personality in any way, you're not really bringing anybody in.
No, exactly. You're not. So it's really of like, what is the goal? Some therapists are like, I just want something on social media. I am not necessarily trying to get clients from my social media page. Cool. We're going to go a very different route than if you're actually trying to recruit clients that
Mhm.
way. The page is going to look very different. The posts are going to look very different.
Right, right. It depends on those goals.
Mhm. Exactly.
Yeah. What are some things that, like, what are some signs that people are ready to hire people to help them?
There's
Um, Yeah.
I would say when you start realizing that your to-do list, I want to say it's never ending because everybody's to-do list is pretty much never ending. But like when it feels that it really is never ending and you just can't get to certain things, you keep pushing certain things off. Going back to social media, a lot of therapists are like, I know I need a social media account. I just haven't created it yet because I don't like social media. Cool. If you don't like something, that could be a nice flag for you to say, maybe this is something I should look into delegating out. Or I'm trying to do the things on my to-do list. It's, growing nonstop. And what are the things I don't like doing or I don't feel like making the time for, or they just don't fill my cup? I personally, I don't like social media.
Hmm.
And I knew that was one of the very first things that I was going to delegate out because I didn't want to look at it. I hate opening the apps on my phone. So I'm like, have at it. Like, go do.
Hmm.
So something you really don't like doing, something that doesn't fill your cup, something you don't have time to do. Because instead of spending, I was talking about this with one of our social media managers actually the other day. She created a post in like under 10 minutes. And I'm like, that would have taken me like a good hour, hour and a half. Like,
Hmm.
that's their strength. It's not yours, and that's okay. So leave it to them to do.
Hmm. Yeah. So I think about like I have this like ADE is always in my head. There's like automate, delegate, eliminate. And this is something I do every quarter where I look at everything I am doing. And I start with like what am I doing that's not actually moving the needle? Because as any business owner knows, in any industry, you can add stuff to your plate for the rest of your life.
Exactly.
There's
That never ending to-do list.
Yeah, there's always more you could be doing, but you really have to assess whether or not what you're doing is working. I know like most of us get really intrigued by the silver bullet that like is going to fix everything. Most of those are the things that get eliminated 3 months later when I fall for it. And so I always look every quarter, what needs to be eliminated, like what's not actually moving the needle, um, what can be automated. Right, like I love ManyChat and social where I don't have to, if I'm just like, if you want the link, say this, instead of having to go in and manually write a link,
Yes.
we have it where it's automated. And then delegating. There is so much. I mean, I own 3 businesses, so of course there's so much I delegate, but
Right.
there is so much that gets delegated that other people are so much better at than me that gives me time freedom. It gives me more confidence in the businesses. Like it's delegating is like my favorite thing. It's not something I used to be good at, but now I would like to say I'm a pro. Um,
So
yeah.
many people struggle with delegating. And that's why I think social media is one of those things that when we work with a lot of therapists who have never had an employee, who've never had a virtual
Mhm.
assistant, and they typically start with social media because they say it's one of those things that is attached to your practice, but isn't you as a practice unless you want to make it that way. So this is the perfect time to practice giving up some of that control, delegating some things out, and then building that trust, and then saying, oh, okay, like in the future now, I do feel a little bit more comfortable delegating out more stuff. Maybe I'll move into delegating admin stuff in a
Mhm.
couple of months. And you slowly start there to see like what works for you and what doesn't. And I think what I hear a lot of therapists say is going back to like that money piece that you were talking about of like, this is money coming out. Yes, but how many hours were you spending on this? And figure out what your hourly rate is then, because I can assure you it is probably not what you were paying somebody else to do for you. And
Mhm.
say, okay, well, I can now fill this with something else, whether it's a paying client, whether it's self-care time and time for myself, like not looking at that dollar value and cringing when you see the money going out.
Right. Because if you're hiring people for marketing assistants, like money should be coming in. And if you're not
Exactly.
getting a return on your investment, then that's
Exactly.
another thing to eliminate. But if they're doing their job, then it gets done. Like you're bringing in clients and you're going to make way more than whatever it is you're spending.
And just having realistic goals too, of when you're delegating out for the first time or trying somebody new, it's not going to happen overnight. So
Right.
saying, what's going to be that benchmark in a month, in 3 months, at the end of the quarter, whatever it is, reevaluating and saying, do I want to keep moving forward with this? Do I eliminate it, or do I pivot towards somebody else to be doing this for me?
And on average for your clients, like what's realistic? Like how long should they wait before deciding whether or not it's working?
So I always say with SEO, rule of thumb for SEO is 4 to 6 months. And people then look at the price tag and they're like, oh my gosh. For
Mhm.
couch coordinators, when I design couch coordinators, coming from a private practice, I designed it to be as flexible as possible with therapists. So I always tell people, we don't trap you into a long-term contracts. Our contracts are month to month. So if you don't want to wait 4 to 6 months, you don't have to. I'm giving
Mhm.
you the opportunity to back out, but you should start to see, in terms of SEO, you should start to see some growth within that first month if it's being done correctly, and it should be being done correctly. Same thing with social media. Of that first month or two, you should start to see growth. If
Mhm.
you're not, then we say, okay, let's look at the KPIs. What's working, what's not working. If carousel posts are working, let's stop doing all of this other stuff and let's only focus on carousel posts for the next month, and then see if the numbers are where you want it a little bit more. So
Mhm.
that piece of like collaborating with that other person, knowing what your expectations are, making sure they're realistic, and having those benchmarks in place. Because
Mhm.
there are people who come in and in my discovery calls, they'll say something about SEO or social media, and I'll say to them, great point, not realistic. So I'm
Mhm.
not going to sugarcoat it for you. Like, don't onboard with us if that's what you're looking for, because I cannot guarantee that. And it's most likely not going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that that's so important because we all want it yesterday,
Yeah,
right? There's like a natural impatience that goes along with just being a human being, I think. And then you add in being a business owner, especially if you're in a space where you really need more clients. There's this desperation that can have you like hoping for things that aren't really possible. And so people often ask me like, how long is it going to take to get full? And I'm like, well, there are 1,000 factors that are going to impact that, but it's not going to be as soon as you want, most likely. Like most of the
exactly.
time, it's just not. So
Exactly. And it's finding out what works for you. Again, like I know plenty of therapists who got full within a certain time frame and somebody else did similar tactics and it did not work for them.
yes.
And it doesn't mean you're failing. That just might not be your authentic business self. What is
Hmm.
your authentic business self? And let's take that and run with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The need for control.
Hmm.
Um, I can relate to that. I remember early on thinking like nobody's gonna love my practice the way I love my practice. Like it feels like a little baby that I can't just like chuck it out there to just anybody, right? And so I had a lot of reticence about delegating anything. And then I made a bad mistake and I hired somebody who I shouldn't have hired. Like it was not a good choice as my first virtual assistant. And then I had to fire her way later than I should have, of course. And it made me want to keep clutching, like, see,
Yes.
I'm the only one I can trust. But then luckily I got to a point where like that just wasn't possible anymore. Like I just couldn't, with everything I had going on, do everything. And then like landed some really amazing support.
Yes.
So I share that because I think other people I know that other people have that worry about the control piece. And I also don't want the one bad experience you might have had to stop you from getting the support you need.
Yes. And I had a similar experience before I started Couchside. I went through 3 different VAs in my private practice, and it didn't work. And I got to the point similar to what you just said of like, I need to do all of this on my own, and realized that wasn't possible, that wasn't sustainable. And that's when I was like, it shouldn't be this difficult to find VAs who understand the field and who come in to my baby practice and treat it like their own baby. And that was part of the process of me building Couchside, was like, it shouldn't be this difficult. And I had horrible experiences and pulled back. And I don't want other people to have to go through that.
Hmm. Exactly. Yeah. Amazing. Well, is there anything else about delegating that you want to make sure people know and understand?
Think figure out what you want to delegate to. That comes up a lot on the discovery calls where people will say, like, I know I need to delegate out. And similar to what I said a few minutes ago, like, but I don't know what, or like, I don't know how many hours I will need. And I always say to them, take a couple of weeks, take a month, start writing out everything you are doing for this business and how much time you are spending doing it. And then
Hmm.
go back to that list, find the things you don't like, find the things you don't want to do, and figure out how many hours you are devoting to that and make that your starting point of, I was doing social media for X amount of hours a week or X amount of hours a month. I return phone calls for 2 hours every day and I don't want to have to do that. Okay, that's a good starting point to say, this is, the hourly package I want. These are the things I want to start delegating. And once you build up that trust, then you can start adding more to the mix. I don't recommend people coming in and saying, like, here's everything with my practice, you can do all of it. Like, that's not going to end well. Start small, build the rapport like you would with any client, and then
Hmm.
build up from there.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Nikki. I hope that like people are thinking about what they can delegate in a different way, like maybe calling themselves on some of the clutching and holding trust issues. And yeah, that doing that time study where you write down everything you do, it's so tedious, y'all, but it's really illuminating.
Yes.
So yeah,
Yeah. And it's a nice way to then go back once you do decide to hire somebody, go back and reevaluate of, I was spending this amount of time, I delegated out. Is it better? Is it worse? Like what else do I need to do and what else might I need to fix?
yeah, amazing. Awesome. Couchsidecoordinators.com is how folks can get in touch with you. Is that the best way?
That is the best way. If you go on there, it shows all of our current service offerings. It links you out to create an interest form, and then somebody on the team will reach out. We do complimentary discovery calls to make sure we're the right fit for you, to figure out, where we can help you. And like I said earlier, we don't do long-term contracts. We just do month-to-month contracts. So you feel comfortable delegating out and adding some adding some overhead, but in a good way to your practice.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Nikki.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
You too.